Matt makes himself very confused.
Oh God. Oh, now we're in trouble. All right.
Okay,
What are you confused about, Matt?
so I wanted to do a deep dive on like social media and the value of the data to like you as a human being who we willingly give our data to these people, right?
Sort of. Yeah. I don't know if I completely agree with that, but keep going.
Well, let's come back to that point.
Yeah.
Um, but number one, I wanted to do like a 3-part process, and today would be
Okay.
part one of this process, and maybe I'll actually get nowhere by the time it's done, except like a metaphysical philosophical dissertation.
Which is okay.
The 3-part process is
Yeah.
effectively answer, if I can, the question how much your data is worth to the companies you're giving it to. Those companies being
Okay.
social media companies,
Like the ones that essentially that Sacha Baron Cohen called out,
more or less, yeah.
more or less.
Number two, how much is your data worth to you, right? Like, how do
Yeah.
you value your data? And
Mhm.
and number three, how long will it be worth that?
Well, how long will the data be
Be worth
worth
whatever it is right now
to me?
to you and the
Anybody,
companies. I
anything.
think
All right, got it.
there's some
The
sustainability
the
question.
shelf life of this
The
data.
shelf life of the data.
Okay.
So first and foremost, I'm not talking about like bank financial data, medical records. I'm not
Right.
talking about like the data Apple's getting on your iPhone, hardware data. I don't want to talk about that because it's really difficult.
Social media data.
I really want to specifically talk about social media data from
Okay.
the biggest social media companies in the world, which are effectively, there's really actually only like 3 of them, but we're going to expand it just a touch. We're talking about Facebook, Google, Twitter, Pinterest, LinkedIn. These companies are effectively, they're taking your data. We know what they're doing. There's an explicit agreement we kind of have with them. They are going to give your data in some form, usually aggregate, to advertisers. They
Right.
are
We agree to terms and agreements or whatever they're called, terms and services that we don't actually read, but you're saying that we are agreeing to let them give our data away. Is that what you're saying?
every time you hit I accept before you open that account, you're just
Yeah.
accepting the fact that they are going to use every bit of data that they can to sell it
Right.
to advertisers, okay?
Right. And not
Now-
just your age.
The advertisers are effectively doing 3 things with it. They are the 3 eights, I like to call them. I coined this term. This is
Oh, good. I
I've
like
seen
this.
this nowhere, but so I'm going to own it.
Sacha Baron Cohen had the Silicon 6. Matt Moscardi has the 3/8.
So precipitate, the advertisers want to they want to entice you to buy something.
Yeah.
Anticipate, they want
Right.
to actually guess what you're going to buy next, or create, which is to say they want to make the product that they know you're going to buy because they have all this
Sure.
data.
Yeah.
So all the data they're getting from social media effectively feeds into one of these 3 troughs. Guess what you're going to buy, make you buy something, guess what you're going to buy, or make something you want to buy.
Okay.
All end with you buying shit. That's it.
Yeah, a lot of shit.
So in honor of
probably throwing away a lot
Black
of shit.
Friday, upcoming Black Friday in the United States, this is the buy shit week.
Oh, yeah.
Just to give you a slight bit of context, the reason why social media has been so effective, because when you compare it to something like buying shit is the fundamental backbone of television, right? Advertise on television, you watch a show, you mindlessly watch the show, you get the advertisement, maybe you buy that thing, right?
Yeah.
The most watched show in the globally, well, in the U.S. really, not globally, but in the U.S. the most watched television show is the Super Bowl X-Licks. The Seattle Seahawks versus the New England Patriots, are my beloved New England Patriots. At peak, 120 million viewers watched the Super Bowl. They sold 49 minutes and 35 seconds of commercials during that Super Bowl at an average of $4.5 million for a 30-second commercial.
Okay.
So you're talking about an advertiser spending $4.5 million to get 120 million eyeballs.
Sure.
Possibly.
Right.
Now compare that to social media. Facebook alone has 2.4 billion active monthly users.
Okay.
Billion with a B.
And that includes Instagram and WhatsApp?
That
or
is
no?
Facebook without Messenger, without
Okay.
Instagram. That's the
Okay.
Facebook you think of when you go on and you make your stupid Facebook profile. It says you
Sure.
like everyone's baby pictures. It's basically
Yeah.
where 50-year-olds hang out now.
Okay.
Now, when you look down the list of social media companies, YouTube's got 2 billion active monthly users. WhatsApp has 1.6 billion, and that's a Facebook company. Actually, when you look down the list, there are 3 companies that effectively own the vast, vast majority of users. Facebook owns 2.4 billion on its Facebook platform, 1.6 billion on WhatsApp, 1.3 billion on Facebook Messenger, and 1 billion on Instagram. One
Okay.
company with Mark Zuckerberg's dual class shares owns effectively all of social media.
Yeah.
Google and YouTube has 2 billion users. And then surprisingly or unsurprisingly, given the size of the country, Tencent, the Chinese
Mm-hmm.
company, has 1.1 billion on WeChat, 800 million on QQ, and 500 million on QZone.
Okay.
Okay? I forget it. I've never heard of any of those. We're not going to spend
Yeah.
time on those.
Well, yeah, but the model applies. Yeah. Okay.
But the real thing I was starting to get interested in is out of these billions of users, how much do they actually make in ads? So
Okay.
Facebook makes the most out of that one platform. Google is really difficult to discern. This is where it gets super confusing because Google has Google Plus and they have Google. You have to get like you're all over. You sign up for a Google account, you basically have Google everywhere, and they're in
Yeah.
search and they're
Right.
advertising everywhere, and it's hard to understand.
Especially if you have an Android phone, probably complicates that.
The estimate for YouTube is YouTube makes about 14 billion a year in ad revenue. Facebook makes 16 billion a year, and
Okay.
everything else is under 4 billion. So Facebook by far makes the most on its
Okay.
platform in ad revenue.
Right.
Now, to understand, this is where it starts to get like fuzzy
Yeah.
because you could just do math and say, well, how much is that per user, right? Like, at Facebook, it's like $6.90 a user for ad
So
revenue.
Facebook is getting $7
They're
essentially
basically
per
getting
user, is what we're saying.
$7 for every
Okay.
monthly active user is one way to
Okay.
look at it, really crudely.
Right.
But each user gives a different set of data, and the value of a user is different. In fact, I went through and I looked to see the bare minimum amount of data points you had to give one of these companies to open an account. It's almost
Mm-hmm.
uniform. You need about 6 data points. You need your
Okay.
name, your email address, a username, a password, your birthday, and usually like a phone number. Pinterest
Okay.
was the only one that didn't require a phone number, so it sort of stood out as like having only 5 for the 6 I've been looking at: Facebook,
Mm-hmm.
YouTube, Snapchat, Twitter, LinkedIn, Pinterest. But basically, it's like 6. You give them 6 data points. In a way, you could say they're making $16 billion a year on 6 data points that I gave them. Everything else they're taking is one way to look at it, right?
Right. Except, yeah, but when you're actively using the service, you're giving them more data.
Exactly. So the
Yeah.
other thing I did was look at the average minimum useful data points, which for
Mhm.
Facebook is like the average user has about 330 contacts. They post about 4 times. They have 10 likes, and they click on 8 advertisements. That's average, basically, on average for a Facebook user per day-ish. So you're giving them this data. This is like minimal useful data points you're giving them. This is on an ongoing basis. LinkedIn is the most interesting because LinkedIn, in a way, you're giving them so much. You're giving your entire work history in order to
Yeah.
make the thing useful, right?
You're giving a lot of sensitive details.
So from a minimum data usefulness, and these are rough estimates. This is like my back of the envelope estimates. You're giving LinkedIn, like, in order for LinkedIn to fully monetize you, you have to give them like 1,300 data points or so on yourself on an ongoing basis. That's posts, likes. There's the average is something like 1,000 connections.
Uh-huh.
Your work history. There's all sorts of this extra stuff that you're kind of giving them.
Okay.
And last but not least, you're giving them your time.
Yeah.
The average amount of time spent per year on Facebook is 350 hours.
So it's about an hour a day.
you're spending about an hour a day on Facebook. YouTube was about 250 hours, Snapchat. So all told, and this is where it gets really complicated, all told, you're giving them a few basic data points that you are actively giving them. You're giving them, in order to use the system really at all, make it interesting to you, for you to get value out of the system, you're giving them some minimum number of data points to make it useful, like likes and posts and, some extra data points. And then you've got to spend time on that thing. So how do you value this, right? Like, I basically went through this process of saying, ad revenue per useful data point, ad revenue per annual minute, ad revenue per user. This is where it's super confusing, because it's hard to know the company. This is what you actively give them. If you read the privacy policies, just putting the app on your phone, they will collect every cookie, every website you've ever visited on that phone, your geolocation.
You don't have to be using the app actively.
They will collect everything they can. Snapchat's privacy policy actively says that they will use the gyroscope and accelerometer data, like to know if I fell over, I lift the phone. Like, what the hell are you going to do with that? They will collect it. That's data you don't know that they're collecting, or you don't offer for them to collect. You often can't limit most of it, and you've given it to them. So how do you value that?
Oh, there's a lot to chew on, that.
There's so much here. It is super confusing to me, and I have literally no idea.
All right, well, we're obviously going to have to stay with
sense
this.
of it.
Yeah, let's stay with this. Let's keep trying to get at the heart of this. I was going to ask you, what about loss in productivity with all that time spent on? Is that something that people take seriously?
Well, I thought about that, and this is one of the rabbit holes I went down. I looked at how much time people spend watching TV.
Oh boy.
And it's 2 or 3 times as much. So if you want,
I think what you're saying is it's time for the Silicon Six to start paying us for our data. That's what I'm saying.
And that is where I am going. If they were to pay you, how much is it worth?